And upon telling them of this Wülfrath, my interest in finding out where is this, it was not too far from Cologne, and they wanted to be sure that I was there during the time I was visiting them. So her husband, Fritz Eichert, drove me in his car to Wülfrath. We found interesting information there in the church office. It's a very interesting city. Lies in the Neander Valley, the Upper Rhine Valley. Most people have heard of the Neanderthal man. The first human skeleton, or the oldest human skeleton found, or at least the head. So at any rate, this is an interesting place to begin with. But what I found that was so interesting to me is that I found the record of Fitzbastian's wedding. He married a Johanna Klopphans, who was from a little neighboring place. These two places are found on a map going back to 1500. How do I know that? Well, I found that when he married, his father was the mayor of the town. I should say city. Well, this is a very old city. And I thought this was something special, that his father was mayor. When he was born, his father was a city secretary. So I got
Bastian's father.
Mm-hmm. This man's
right.
father. When I came back from that trip, I thought I must find more. I was not able to get into the church. It was locked, but I clearly saw the church, and I was at the church office just by asking questions of people. And I have the certificate of marriage for him. When I got back, I wrote the mayor, the present-day mayor. I didn't have his name. I just used the title. But much to my surprise, I received a book with the history of the place, going back to the Neanderthal man and the Stone Age. A map that is from 1500. The secretary of the mayor very kindly had marked a few places in the book that related to my story, or his story, I should say, so that we can even see where those two places were that they came from. The bride was 18 and he was 25. He was trained as a bookbinder when he came here. He lived the rest of his life in Austin, Texas.
Was that his knife in there?
Mm-hmm.
Could you show me his knife?
No, that's the other grandfather.
That's the other grandfather. No,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's my grandfather. No, this one is my great-grandfather.
Very interesting.
He's the father-in-law. I have a notion that, this is kind of off the cuff, but I have a notion of that he inspired or got my grandfather into bookbinding, because grandfather Reisner was a bookbinder later on. The first note that the first time that I found his name in the Austin City Library History Center, he was in business with someone in a saloon on Congress Avenue. Well, this was his stepfather's work, you see. His grandfather Reisner's stepfather was August Schultz, who bought the whole block. My mother had a note to that effect, and also her cousin has her recollections in the Austin History Center and says the same thing. He bought the whole block that the present day Schultz Garden is on. Mr. Schultz bought that in 1860 or 61. I think my mother had 61, whatever. Let's say it's at around that time. But this is a very interesting city, and the other thing that was in I have to find it. There are things I haven't found where I have put them yet, but as I said, I have the copy of the certificate of marriage. I also have a letter that recommends his father for the position of city secretary. And when he was born, his father was city secretary. So that letter is also connected to the whole story. It highly recommends him, and it classifies him as a house teacher. I'm taking this to be a tutor, a private tutor. Some family who could afford to do so had hired him to teach their children, is the way I'm interpreting that letter. But it definitely was a character reference for the position of city secretary. And then he went on to be the city mayor. When he was mayor was during the time of the war with Napoleon being in there. And one of the things also that was in the package with the book about Wilfrid was a copy of a newspaper article in which the mayor was trying to recover some of the costs of housing 2,500 Russian soldiers and their horses. The comment being that no, they didn't recover their costs, but he was glad that they at least didn't suffer damages from doing so. The church is very interesting in itself because it was first built in 1100 in a style that's called Romanesque. Simple lines, windows have rounded tops. Later, they, as people are still doing today, try to modernize something, and they had on one side of the building, they are now what they did at that time to modernize. They went to Gothic arches, which is a pointed arch, not just rounded. More elaborate. And so one side, but